had I known this, maybe I would have taken another year off to mitigate my loans. But because this is coming out of nowhere and I've already signed into my lease, I'm already set up my jobs for next year, it's very difficult to now pull back because I can't afford it. I feel like I'm trapped in this situation without any consultation.
Students want a free and accessible post-secondary education, one that's also supplemented by great campus services, and we're going to make sure that the government hears that.
The day after Ontario's Conservative government announced plans to scrap free tuition for low-income students, many university and college students are speaking out. The Canadian Federation of Students organized a rally at Queen's Park. They're angry about the changes and worried about increasing debt. The province insists it's making post-secondary education more affordable by reducing all tuition by 10%. But does that make up for changes to the Ontario Student Assistance Program? Danny Chang is the president of the Ontario Undergraduate Student Alliance, and he joins me from Toronto. Mr. Chang, I just want to ask, what's your overall reaction to the changes Ontario has made to post-secondary education in terms of tuition and assistance?
Yeah, so first of all, Katie, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And you know what, I would say there's a lot of pieces to the announcement that we'd have to kind of dissect. And so firstly on the tuition piece, I think out of any sort of province in Ontario, in Canada, we're seeing that Ontario has the highest tuition across the board. And so this decrease in tuition is something that students are pleased about. However, we do have concerns about, recognizing that this sort of decrease has to be matched with an increase in public funding, because quality of education is something that's so important to students across the entire province. And now I guess related to that very closely is the changes to financial assistance, to OSAP. And students are very concerned about some of these changes, and we are a bit disappointed to see some of the changes from a primarily grants-based program into one that's very loans-based. And we're concerned about what this means for students entering the workforce and being able to contribute to the economy, to contribute to being a citizen of Ontario productively when it comes to the amount of, we're talking about the changes to the grants to loans-based program, what this means for students repaying their loans, as well as students being able to access education, because we know debt aversion is a large part of attending post-secondary education or not attending post-secondary education. And Katie, the last piece was the announcement on non-essential fees additional to tuition. And so, we're recognizing that a huge component of being a student nowadays is more than just the academic experience, but it's about being a student overall. And there are so many services provided on campus, from being a part of a club, from a health and dental plan provided by student governments to transit plans. And so definitely students are concerned about what that means for the overall sort of health of post-secondary education and being a student.
If you take a look at these changes overall, do you feel that it's going to be better for post-secondary education in Ontario in the long run, or on the long term, or is it more of a mixed bag here?
Yeah, so Katie, I think we've seen a lot of different changes to multiple pieces of the puzzle, and I think this is something that we're going to be monitoring closely over the next number of months to the next number of years. And I think definitely when we're talking about things like the changes to non-tuition related fees and what that means for our students' general experience on campus, we are kind of concerned of what this is going to look like, and we're concerned that students may be having to pay additional amounts of money for services in which they're used to being provided on a day-to-day basis. And so we definitely have some of our concerns.
We spoke to Colleges and Universities Minister Mary-Lee Fullerton yesterday, and I want to play you a clip of that interview to get your reaction.
Okay.
I think it's important to listen to students, and that's what we've done during the campaign and after, and students can tell us what they need, and we've heard from very many students, as I said, in many different instances.
We pushed the minister to find out if any post-secondary institutions were actually consulted during this process, and she wouldn't give us an answer. We know someone from the University of Toronto said on our program earlier yesterday that there was no consultations with the University of Toronto. I'm very curious to find out whether the province of Ontario consulted with your organization, or if you're aware of consultations on these changes.
Yeah, so Katie, ever since the provincial election, our organization has been concerned about, having conversations with government and building that relationship. And this past November, we went to Queen's Park and we met with over 65 MPPs for our Student Advocacy Week, meeting not only members of government, but also members across opposition parties, including the leader of every single party, as well as the minister. And so we've been having an ongoing conversation on a long-term basis, and with this announcement that we heard yesterday, unfortunately, some of the changes are not necessarily what our organization was looking forward to hearing about, and so unfortunately, not exactly what we were hoping for.
So, but there were some sort of consultations, there was some sort of interaction, but did you know that this was coming, that tuition cuts were coming?
No, Katie. I think we heard earlier this week that there was a bit of information that was out in the press, and I think that was definitely an indication that something was coming this week. And so definitely the announcement yesterday. I think there was a lot of details that were some expected and some very big surprises.
We sort of already touched on some of the changes to the Ontario Student Assistance Program, known in this province as OSAP. There's one change that we did ask the minister about yesterday, and we also couldn't get a really clear answer on. Ontario is killing the 6-month grace period before interest starts to build on those student loans. Why do you think that was changed?
So, Katie, I'm not quite sure. What we do know is that prior to the announcement yesterday, for 6 months after a student finishes their full-time studies, their interest would not accrue for that 6-month period, and now we're hearing that it will. And definitely on our end, we are a bit disappointed to hear that news, because we believe that there should be some time between a student graduating and getting on their feet and finding that employment.
I was going to say, from your perspective, someone who is still in a post-secondary institution, how difficult is it to get a job out there when you're fresh out of school?
Yeah, so Katie, you know what? Nowadays, we're entering an era where the jobs of today and the jobs of tomorrow are continually shifting on a very, very rapid basis. And so for us, we're focused on building skills that are applicable to the world around us. Myself, I'm an astrophysics student, and I don't quite know if I'm going to go into the world of physics after I finish. However, I know the skills that I've developed over my time during my studies and being able to apply that to extracurricular activities, these are skills that I'll take along with me for the rest of my life, and I hope that that is something that can be applicable across the board, and I think that focus on skills and being able to apply what we learn in post-secondary to the job market, whatever that may look like, I think is something that's crucial across the board.
Now, the Auditor General has warned very severely that the OSAP program could balloon up to $2 billion a year. And of course, the Doug Ford team, the Conservatives campaigned on balancing its budget. And they walked into a situation where that was a long way off. Do you get where the government is coming from when they say they need to make cuts, even if it is to something that's important to you?
So, Katie, I mean, if we're taking a look at the numbers for the 2017-2018 academic year, we saw a significant increase in the uptake of OSAP. And I think that should be a clear indication that financial assistance is something that's required to thrive in post-secondary education. One of our pillars is accessibility to a high-quality education, and we want to make sure that the government recognizes that this increase in uptake should be an indication that students are looking for a more affordable education.
But shouldn't the program be sustainable, though? Does it not need to be sustainable?
Absolutely, and we think that's definitely an important component of it. And we also think that the indication that there is significant need for this program, I think, should be something that we can have a conversation to government about, to find solutions, and to move forward and ensure that post-secondary education is high quality and affordable.
Danny Chang, I want to thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me, Katie.